Welcome, everyone, to the Natty 19 Behind the Screen. This is the 12th episode that we've done of it. And I just wanted to add this quick insert here before we get going that you can actually witness a video version of this BTS. Right now, if you head over to Patreon, search for Natty 19, find us, and check out all the information there on how you can gain access to the video version of the BTS. We're going to try to do that pretty frequently. I want to say for just about all the BTSs going forward, unless something crazy happens, but we want to try to keep this a regular thing. Without further ado, let's get into it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Natty 19 Behind the Screen. What's this, 11, 12?
One of those, I think.
One of them.
All right, as you can see, for the first time in Natty 19 history, this is also going out as an audio, though, as well. But we're also video taping. We're videotaping this.
Videotaping? Is videotaping a thing? We don't use tape.
We're video recording it.
Filming. We're filming.
We're filming it. Thank you.
And now you can see how much we actually drink.
Yeah. That's embarrassing.
All right.
Too little or too much?
Too little. Oh my goodness.
Too little.
If they know when I start slurring, I've only had like 2 or 3.
I drink perfectly. I'm joined tonight with Charlie Marshall. You guys know him as Quincy, but for the first time, those watching this, you now see the man behind the voice of the young Quincy Fallow.
The young Quincy Fallow. You can see my thin pencil mustache.
Yep. And also joining us, Christy Lee.
Hello.
We're recording this.
Yeah, so many things to look at.
You might notice her face paint. She just got out of work a little bit ago, and since this is the Halloween season, she dresses up. She is a beautiful, dressed-up waitress and makes a lot of money when she dresses up.
I was going to say, do you work as Pinocchio or something?
No, I was a doll this evening. I had a big bow in my hair earlier and stuff, but it got hot and work was crazy, so I ended up just looking like a psychopath by the end of it.
Yeah.
It happens.
So tonight we're going to be covering episodes 41, 42, and 43.
Combat-heavy episodes.
The Gladiators.
All combat.
The fight with the Gladiators, a lot happened during that fight that we're going to go over and touch on. It should be a great episode.
Yeah, I think
tonight.
we're going to hit some topics that a lot of people get stuck on or...
I thought Quincy was going to die in that fight.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Copernicus. He also was on the brink of death. Things got a little heated. There was also a few rules that were broken that we're going to mention and touch on as well, so we get a little rules clarification there. Christy, why don't you take us in whenever you're ready?
All right. So, we'll start with episode 41. The first thing I thought we should talk about tonight, and we've touched on it here and there, is ultimately the description of the temple and tomb that we were in.
Which shrine is which shrine is
The Shrine of
shrine.
Shigambi.
Yep.
Okay.
So we enter the Shrine of Shigambi, and our DM gives us a gorgeous, detailed explanation of what we are walking into, and I feel like we didn't use it. Like we were not paying attention to the right things.
Use it in relation to the fight.
Yes, absolutely,
Like
in
using
relation
the
to the
map.
fight. Yep.
Okay.
And just recalling what was going, like, I don't taking in everything that there was that we needed to know. Like, and what is extremely surprising is we knew that these shrines were essentially puzzles. We should have absolutely been paying attention to stuff. And I feel like we missed a lot. And I think that says a lot about planning your move while simultaneously listening to your DM.
Right. So I think this comes down to like two parts. Like when we enter the shrine, we have no idea we're about to fight the gladiators.
No.
Right. But we do know that there's a puzzle involved. We kind of have that sense.
And danger.
And danger.
Yep.
And we have like the statues with the missing, is it spears?
Spears,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. So the statues with the missing spears. So we kind of have an idea, you know,
Of what we need.
of what we need, but we don't know how to go about it. We don't know yet. And yeah, I don't know. I think we knew that there was a downstairs. We knew that there were stairs going down. There was more to the shrine, and maybe we would find more clues. And that's when we ran into these guys.
Yeah, and then maybe the combat was just so chaotic so quickly that everything that we had learned about the upstairs part of the Shrine of Shigambi just went out the window.
So what would you have used on the map that would
Well,
be
on the
different?
map,
Hindsight.
yeah,
Hindsight edition.
I think it's worth bringing up the grate. When we entered, John mentioned if we looked up, we would see the grate. He described the grate when we first entered.
Yep.
As a caster, I felt really foolish for not utilizing that immediately, for not just doubling back.
So real quick though, just curious, how many rounds? Like, what's the distance? Like, if we walked into the room with the gladiators, the trap is set, these things are animated. Then, if you wanted to be
I
up at
could
the
have
top,
dashed twice,
you could have dashed twice.
and
So
I think that would have basically got me there.
One full 60-foot range would have gotten you at least up to the top
Yeah,
floor.
so 2 dashes.
So it might have been
yeah.
2 rounds of just movement, is what you're saying.
It's one full round, one round of movement because you can get up to 60 feet in one
okay,
round,
and then another round,
and then another round to get to the
move
grate
and then attack.
and attack.
and
Yep.
you could attack. Okay, so you would have lost. So do you think?
So
if
I
you
would have
had
missed
that
one
thought-
attack.
And do you think you would have taken that? Like you would have forfeited that
If I would have
for
remembered,
that position?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Especially, and I can't remember exactly how it played out, but especially if I saw someone take a hit from one of those before it was my turn
Those,
and saw the damage that dealt and how trapped Irame was down there
Was it spear, shield?
in reference to how she normally
Yep.
plays. Yep.
And listening back, editing to it, I was like, why wouldn't I go shield, spear, right?
Oh,
But there was a
Yeah.
lot of listeners that were like, why is he going easy on them? Why not go shield, spear?
That would have
Because
been
if
tougher.
Sometimes it's just seeing them written in that order. You know what I mean?
that's what it
And then-
was. That's what it was, I think.
On the stat block.
Because
Yeah.
going back, listen, I was like, why? Well, you know what it was? I went back and I listened to the fight with Clem at the refuse pit.
Right.
In that fight, I was using that gladiator as a shield, spear. And I was like, no kidding. Why wasn't I doing that? I could have wrecked these guys easily, because if that shield hit, knocked you prone, that's 2 spear attacks at advantage.
Well, yeah, as it was, we almost lost a couple of us,
Right.
and that could have tipped it to where there would have been a death.
Yeah.
Or it would have sprung you guys into fight or flight a little quicker,
Right.
Into a retreat. Either way, it's it was just worth
Instead of our
mentioning.
4 episode Dragon Ball Z battle.
Yeah. Essentially, though, for me, it was another moment, and it happens incrementally, where I'm like, listen to my DM, like listen to your DM, like take these things in. If you love the role playing aspect of Dungeons and Dragons, it can be easy at times to be wrapped up in what your character is doing and miss important information that's happening around you. For me, anyway.
Yeah, because to some degree, it pulls you away from the metagame,
It does.
you know,
Yeah.
which could be good
Yeah.
for the fun of it, you know.
Yeah, I think that both have its, if being immersed in your role playing is definitely fun, and I think it makes it fun for other people to play with you. But when you miss stuff like that, think about how you're not playing your character to its full potential if you miss it.
Right.
Irame, in that situation probably would have doubled back,
Right.
But just it's one of those things where it's like, listen to your DM.
Yeah, to go back to Chuck started to list off, I guess you would, I don't want to call them excuses, but, reasons. And another one would be up to this point, you guys haven't really had a fight that was worth fleeing from or that you needed to. So I think going into this fight, despite all the warnings, I think you guys oftentimes I do exaggerate or embellish.
You're the boy who cried wolf.
Maybe it could have been a boy who cried wolf situation where you didn't take me serious enough when I said these things are coming in hot. But you guys try to stand toe-to-toe with them right out the gate.
And I think it's worth at least noting that our party composition was slightly different, which means that how we've gelled as an adventuring group was a little bit disrupted. Not in a bad way. Like, I'm just saying it wasn't...
There was a paradigm shift.
Yeah. So we weren't in our comfortable, sort of roles and compliments,
Oh.
It was all new. It was a whole new dynamic. that we
Yeah.
had to
If
explore.
Zavril was there, he would have been like, Irame, get the fuck upstairs.
That's true.
Maybe.
You would have heard him
Yeah.
in the background, like, somebody go upstairs, cast on him from above, and nobody would be listening. And then later on,
That's not true. I'm the only one that listens to Kevin.
I hear it in the editing all the time. He'll call it right out the gate, and no one's listening. Everyone's joking around. And then an hour later, someone will say it, and he'll be like, yeah, that's what I said.
Oh, I miss K-Way.
Yeah.
All right. So next topic I thought was a good one to bring up was the targeting. I'll give it to you really quick because you've never used an enemy to target one of us.
Oh.
To lock on.
Yeah,
Lock
locked
on.
us
I
on.
see what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Irame had a clay gladiator on her ass.
Yeah, that happened for two reasons. One, you had cut my hair that day, and no, I'm just kidding.
He's not.
I know. It wouldn't have come up.
No.
You don't joke about that. That comes from a place.
Does. These guys, I'd made it extremely clear from the get-go. These guys were acting as trained fighters. They had seen this caster move in, and three out of the four of them were fighting your martial guys.
Yeah.
It only made sense for at least one of them to keep you moving, at least. And that's where, and it worked. It worked because your lightning bolt that you fired off was only at one guy instead of three.
That's what I was going to come
So
to.
he
is
was
I
happy.
I had a plan and it was there. Three of those clay gladiators were lined up and my lightning bolt does great damage and it would have shot through all of them.
Yeah.
But because that guy wouldn't leave me alone,
You felt the pressure.
I couldn't make the right moves without risking getting hurt. And every time that there was one time I went to risk it and everyone was like, whoa, 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 whoa. And they were right because that was the right call. Irame couldn't take three
You
shots.
are the
from...
squishiest of all the characters.
Absolutely. Yeah. Irame could not have taken 3 hits from one of those guys. So it was the right call. But I was because of that targeting, I was so desperate. And I had to go one way or another. And one way was to be completely ineffective and not be dealing damage. And the other way was to put myself directly in harm's way. So it just kind of pinched me.
Well, it's not completely ineffective because, like Jay pointed out, he's trying to keep the mage busy. It works both ways. It's a two-way street.
Yep.
Even if you're avoiding him and he's chasing after you, it's one less that the martial characters are in the fray with.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
so it wasn't doing nothing.
Yeah, I
You know?
suppose you're right, but it was tough. As a player and you're playing as your character, it was very tough because you have what you want to do, and then you've got your DM.
Yeah, Quincy, I feel like in battle, Quincy's feeling less and less capable. And that's because like his damage output is very small. He does one attack, 1d8, nothing special.
Yep.
You know, and his support, but he tries to do what he can in a support role, but that's sort of like it's limited. And I think that's something that we might see shift in the future for Quincy. But I feel that what you're talking about, Quincy feels that. I feel that with Quincy very occasionally, like, shit, I don't really have much to contribute.
Yeah, what am I going to do here?
Yeah. And because I have minimal damage output. If I've already burned through my inspirations and nobody needs a cure wounds, then what the fuck is Quincy going to do, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. That was tough, and but it was also fun. It was a new aspect that we hadn't like that as a caster I had never dealt with before, and it was neat to kind of see what happens when your hands get tied.
See, you've never dealt with that before, but in our Abyss campaign, Rashad had those gems that attracted the spiders.
Yeah.
So every time we would get into a battle with spiders, not just one of them, all of them would be focused on my character.
I remember that.
That was such an amazing thing. What an amazing thing.
It was fun, and I refused to give up those gems.
Yeah.
What a fun game. What a fun game D&D is.
It is a fun game. All right. Apologies. Moving on. Character deaths.
Tomb of Annihilation. Character.
Yes. So, actually, before we get to character deaths, let's go over the oopsie doopsie rules.
Oh, yeah.
Would we fuck up?
Yeah.
Where's
We
my
messed. I
notes?
think there was 2 or 3, maybe 4.
There's a few things I wanted to
4.
mention. Concentration rules. So the way concentration works is I'm not prepared, but it's not one or the other, whichever one is higher in the player's favor. It's not like your choice, right? It's whichever one is higher is the DC, and that is I think it was 10 DC 10 or half the total amount of damage dealt in that hit, right? I believe that's what it was. But then I added whichever, it's your choice. And it's not your choice. It's whichever damage is higher is the DC. And I just wanted to clarify that.
So essentially, it's hard mode, and you.
Well, think about it in the sense of the real world, right? You're taking a hit while concentrating on a spell. The DC is going to be the higher of the damage that you're taking, not the lower, right? I mean, it only makes sense. The next one was, I think there was a time when Copernicus had summoned his pack blade and brought out his shield. All right. Donning and doffing a shield is one action, and it's worth mentioning. We're so used to drawing a weapon and such, and sheathing a weapon in tandem with your movement action. But when it comes to a shield or switching out armor, a shield is one action, and in various armor is even longer.
So donning a shield is an action, whereas unsheathing a weapon is not.
Right.
Now, is that because there's a bracing that happens when
I think
like, how do they justify it?
I think pulling out a shield and equipping it is just a little bit more complex than unsheathing your sword.
Yeah, because you grab a sword and you whip it out.
Crossbow? Like, what about a bow you keep on your back? Like, isn't that just
you whip it out and then you could use it. Whereas a shield, I feel like there are fucking straps and shit and handles and
Okay, yeah.
I mean?
Right.
Like, it's not simple.
You need to adjust it.
Okay, so it's more of the mechanics of actually loading it onto your arm and not the fact that you need to kind of brace with it.
Yeah, it's
All
a
right.
matter of bringing it out and equipping it
All right.
Yeah.
is one action. By the rules.
And putting it away
Yes, donning and doffing.
if you were to throw it down.
I always imagine
If you were
a
to throw
shield.
it down, I would imagine no.
Okay.
That's
Just
not,
curious.
Yeah, that's not doffing. I think that's just dropping.
Yep.
Maybe, unless
Yeah.
unless
So I always
maybe
imagine a shield with something that you could hold on to, and then also like a strap
Oh.
that you put your arm in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and maybe you'd have to tighten
Buckle
those
it, or-
straps. So yeah, maybe
Or
you
even
can't
just
just
trying
drop
to
a
get through,
shield.
even just trying to get through the strap is
Yeah.
different than just grabbing a handle.
Yes.
You know?
Yep, I see it now. Because imagine that you have to put your arm in, tighten it. I mean, otherwise it's going to be loosey goosey.
Would you let a player throw their shield to the ground?
After this
fling it?
conversation tonight, no, I would not, because you need to fuck with those buckles and you need to drop it. That's an action.
All right.
Sorry, going forward,
And, okay.
there'll
So
be
then
no dropping of shields.
any
That's
more
a bonus action
rule?
or whatever.
Oopsie
In
doopsies.
tandem with movement. Yes, there is. One last. Actually, there's two more. Wesson with the polearm. Wesson has the polearm master feat, and we had it right, but there was one small thing, one small detail with the polearm master feat. With that 10-foot reach you have with the glaive, if a creature moves within your reach, it would provoke an attack of opportunity from Wesson. All right. There was maybe about 3 or 4 incidences during that fight where he could have taken his reaction to get a free one attack of opportunity when that didn't happen.
And that could just be like a matter of knowing the character. He's a new character.
Right.
You
Not
know,
just a new character, new player.
New
player, new
player.
character, and I mean, it was missed on all sides. I mean, it's something that I probably should have looked at as well.
New weapon. We don't
it's-
really fuck with those too much, do we? Or we don't really mess with them.
That's true. And feats are so individualized. I mean, and it's a lot to expect the GM to know every character's abilities. I mean, I feel like as players, that's sort of our job.
Our responsibility, yeah.
And granted, he is a new player.
But as a new
but
player, everybody, the DM and the other players, it's, even while we were playing, I remember you were sitting next to him and you were helping him find things on his character sheet. It's kind of a village job to
Absolutely,
help,
yeah. And
help remember those
Yep.
things.
I think too that I mean, I've been playing for now 2 years almost, right? This winter will be 2 years of me playing tabletop.
Yeah.
Games
of all
with you
time.
guys?
At
yeah.
least, I mean, yeah, about 2 years.
About 2 years.
We've done D&D.
Since Out of the Abyss.
We've done several D&D. We've done a
Mouse Guard.
Pathfinder and
Is that what it's called?
Mouse Guard.
Mouse
Mouse
Guard.
Guard and
yeah.
Pathfinder, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been that amount of time, and I still and I've been playing Irme for almost a year now, and I still miss stuff with her spells.
Yeah. I mean, it's inevitable. It's going to happen. You have a lot going on during the game. You're trying to pay attention.
Well, I don't know how many episodes I went through with Quincy and thought that the Bardic Inspiration was an action. And it's only a bonus action.
That's right.
So I totally nerfed myself.
One of my favorite things is how many times you relearn the same rule, but you
Yeah.
have to look it up again.
Some
How many
rules are always
times-
going to be like that.
With certain spells, I don't know how many times one of us has asked, "Can I do this to myself?"
Yeah.
You know, and you've asked it before,
Right,
And then you
right.
read the spell card out loud to everybody, and we all come to the same conclusion we came to 6 episodes ago when this happened.
Right.
Yeah. And there is one more mess up that was actually pointed out by a fan that I'll mention once we get to that point in the storyline here.
I think I know what you're talking about, and I think that's our next topic.
So yeah, let's.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about character deaths again. We've talked about this a few times on the BTSs, but not specific to the characters that we have now situationally.
No.
We had 2 very near-death experiences in episode 43.
I don't remember exactly which one, but I do know that for me, like I had a week in between. There was a
That was the
decision.
end of 42
So the end
ended
of
with his
42
decision. that he had to make.
Right.
The end of 42, things were looking extremely grim for Quincy.
Right.
It ended on his
Copernicus is
turn.
down. Copernicus is down, right?
Yeah.
He's unconscious. He's making death saves.
Yep.
Quincy's next to him with single-digit hit points, I think. Yeah, so he had a decision to make. And the whole week, I was like, do I run? Do I heal heal Copernicus? But even if I ran, like I could disengage and run. That was like the safest thing that he could do. But would that be I don't know, would that have been the right thing to do? And I resolved as Quincy to heal Copernicus. I thought that that's really what.
I
Yeah,
agree.
I don't
That's
know.
the hardest thing
It's-
is fighting with your character versus what's going to keep your character alive.
Yeah, I mean, it was regardless of what you decided, there would have been consequences. That's why I felt it was the perfect cliffhanger to end that episode on, because it was anybody who's familiar with the game, they would have looked at those choices and they would have understood completely and immediately, like, wow, like, what do you do? Regardless of any of those three, there was going to be consequences, you know?
Yeah, it didn't take long for me to decide that, like, I knew what I was going to do. I was going to heal Copernicus. But then, knowing that I was going to heal Copernicus, I basically had to come to terms with Quincy dying. Like,
Right.
he could die if I heal Copernicus, because then I couldn't disengage.
As it turns out, and I think it was the initiative order, the way it was, is that
Yeah.
right after you healed him, he got knocked right back down because it was
Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
because the one of those three choices was attacking the clay gladiator that was almost dead, and
Right.
and he was up next. So if you were able to land a hit and do enough damage to finish him off,
Do you remember how many hit points he had?
7.
Okay, so
I
it was
think.
conceivable,
Don't quote me
right,
on
It was
that.
conceivable. Quincy does like something like 1d8 plus 3 or something.
Right.
So
It could have been 4. I don't remember. I don't want someone to be like, yeah, it was 4, not 7.
yeah, so it was conceivable that Quincy could have killed him, but I wasn't feeling confident that he could.
So
They had high
enter-
AC too. What, 17, something like that. So
Yeah, well, I do have a +6, I think, to hit,
yeah,
maybe.
substantial.
That is.
But so yeah, the death saves. Is that where we're going next?
It's
Yeah,
still less
so
than
we're
50-50.
gonna go right from 42 to 43. And this is where you see as far talking about character deaths this time, there's something specific I sort of want to talk about because we've talked about it before. And it was the contrast between Quincy, Charlie anticipating his character's death, and Swain's Copernicus not seeing it coming or not seeing it. There was like
I spent the week practicing a new voice.
exactly. Yeah, you had like. But what's so funny is we left episode 42 with you still standing and Cappy on the ground,
Right.
and you were coming up with a new character and you were grieving, and
Yep.
Swaney was still very optimistic that he was going to live through this.
Really,
I
he didn't realize till the moment in game that he might not.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think so. Yeah.
I think he knew that. I don't think that he did. I think he thought, I've been down before. I'll get back up. You know.
Right.
But just the contrast between the two, like the anticipation of your character's death.
Yeah.
I think that makes a huge difference because I think what bothered Swain the most, and I gathered this after I listened to the episode again, was Cappy's story wasn't gonna get finished. And I think that was when the panic set in with him, when he realized that, like, oh shit, I might actually die here, and my story's done, and I still have more to tell. You know, I still have more to my story.
Yeah.
And I think that was what was so upsetting to him in that moment.
That's an interesting thought because any one of our characters could die anytime. And yeah, there's more story that we want to get out for our characters, or we have this nice complete idea
Right.
of what our character story and arc is going to be and how it's going to manifest. But yeah, it can get chopped off like that. and to some degree, like, you got to kind of depend on the rest of the group and the rest of the players to sort of, at least, even if not every detail of that story gets revealed, to at least give it a nice epilogue, you know, sort of get, and then maybe find ways to sort of provide windows into the rest of it, you know?
Well, one idea that I was, if you've got a plot like James has,
It's a fucking good plot.
it's a good plot. It's thick. It's important, and it's so ingrained in the story, which makes it even easier when you do roll your alt to roll an alt that is entwined in that same plot.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You can do that. You have that level of creativity to where there's got to be other people that are tied to this Krugen sphere in some way, shape, or form. Get creative with it, have fun with it, and carry on the plot of the Krugen sphere.
I mean, at this point,
Clem.
but
even
but
Quincy,
not
at this
when you're
point.
not prepared. If you don't think you're gonna die, and then all of a sudden you're bleeding out, and you haven't, your brain's not processing all those
You know what? I actually love it. I love
your
it.
brain's not
That's part of
processing
the-
those
that's the
rational.
thrill.
But
Your brain's
you-
not processing those rational thought lines. You're
If I
like,
could bottle that thrill and drink it every day, I mean, come on.
it's like the process of grieving. Your mind isn't at the moving on point yet. Your mind is
Yep.
still at like panic mode and anger. You
But
know,
there's-
you have to like go through the stages of grief when you lose a character.
You go through this. You're right. There are stages, but if you have a preconceived notion already that you can create an alt and tie them to this plot, then those stages are mitigated to some degree. You know,
I
you don't
agree.
go in a panic. You have to accept that not all is lost long before you even start playing. You know, like, you can do that. You can say, look, I love my plot. Even if I die, I'll create a character that can continue the plot somehow.
I mean, shit, he could have died in a swamp with an alligator fucking rolling around underwater with him, right?
Right. Yeah.
How much would we have known of his plot then?
Well, I think there's other things that weigh into the death of a character. How long you've been playing that character. If you haven't rolled up an alt yet that you've gotten into, or even if you have rolled up an alt but you're not that into it yet, you haven't found your place with it yet. All those things I think make a difference when you're letting a character go.
Right.
Which is the contrast between Charlie prepping for that to happen, and Swaney not expecting it to happen, and therefore not being prepared. In his defense, I have a concept of a character, but I haven't flushed out that character enough to be invested in it and to be super excited to start it. I'd be very upset if Irame was bleeding out on the floor in there.
So I think it's like the way of the samurai to walk with death. And I feel like you should always be prepared. Like, it's not a question of like,
That's right.
you're not expecting your character to die. You should always be prepared that your character's going to die.
That's right. But yeah, you know, you can. There's already open ends in there that you can. He could bring it in, and I'm sure he will. You know, James isn't stupid. He just panics, right? Once he calms down, he comes up with some real clever shit. And I know that if Copernicus were to die, like, you would see that Krugen sphere plot get solved in an awesome way, because he can put together some
I think
shit.
that you're right, because I find that Swaney and I are both more reactive people than Charlie and you are. I found that just in game and in life in general, that's something that I've noticed that we have in common. So even when it was happening, you can hear me in the episode nervously laughing a couple times because
Yeah.
And it's not like my normal laugh. You can hear like,
Oh yeah, when he got up and hugged me, you were like, "Oh my god, oh, thank God!" I thought it was all gonna fall apart.
Well, so
I was like, well, first Quincy, and I was almost crying. Quincy was, nothing bad had even happened to you yet, but because you had been preparing all week and John had mentioned it a couple times and showed me the impossible situation that you were in, as soon as we started playing, I was like, so choked up. John looked over at me and he was like, Christy's gonna cry. And I was like, I'm not.
well, so and like you just said, like he would have come up with something that's part of the game as well.
Yep.
Like is to adapt, is to improvise. And,
I think I think the other part of that was he did mention that he just didn't have time. Right, he's got a lot going on in his life right now. I think he mentioned he just doesn't have time to come up with a really cool character, So he didn't want Copernicus to die, probably mainly for that reason. He just didn't have time to think out how to complete Copernicus or the Krugen sphere's plot line
I think
with
that
a whole
it's
new
awesome.
character.
I think
but I
it's
think he
awesome
would have.
that we get so invested in our characters that their deaths, we question our ability to make a fleshed out character like that again. We get so invested in
Here's
them,
the thing, and this goes. Everybody who's been playing knows this. Make a character, start playing, worry about the details later. Those will always come out as you go. Just make a character, start playing, get in the game again, and then it'll come to you, and you start bringing out the backstory, the details, the connections. It'll happen.
yeah, and don't be too rigid with what you expect it all to be, because like if you give it like a looser structure, it gives you so much more freedom to latch on to things that start happening in the campaign.
Exactly. It tailors it to not only the players around you, but also the story, and and you're gonna have a lot more fun with that.
All right. Moving on to a topic that we actually haven't covered too much in the behind the screens that I think is an important one. And it has to do with the fact that after the combat, the combat was all over.
Yep.
We have our moments, very dramatic scenes, and then we move back into the temple. And the two spears are on the ground. Cappy's up.
No, this is okay.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in here. This is where that last mistake was that was pointed out to us by a fan.
Oh, yes.
Death saves and how they work in terms of when you pass your third death save, you're supposed to remain unconscious for like 1d4 hours unless you receive any point of healing.
I think that was my bad. I think I might have been the one that was like, yeah, you get a hit point and pop back up.
I mean, I
But I
jumped
didn't
onto
know.
it because it was
I
I
had no idea.
feel like somewhere in a past edition or somewhere or with
Something,
maybe a
maybe.
house rule we used to play with I don't know what happened, but for whatever reason it sounded right. And yeah, when you pass your third death save,
You know
you
what
get
it-
up with 1 hit point.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
I wonder if it's like in Pathfinder, you get your passive heal checks, when you're unconscious and bleeding and stuff to
Yeah.
stabilize.
Yeah.
I don't think you go conscious though. I think you just stop bleeding.
Right.
So I don't know.
Well,
I don't
let's
know
talk
I
either.
think back in the day from playing, I don't know.
Let's
it
take
could have
it
been a
from-
house rule from 2nd edition.
Let's take it from the bottom and talk about what the rule is, what we did, and how things could have been different.
Right. So on a third, this is what happened. This is why this is kind of a big deal. Orvex had passed his third death save, and he came up with 1 hit point, and then went over and revived and used a medicine check, rolled a 20 on his medicine check to bring Copernicus up. Right. And that's the only
So he wouldn't have been able to do that.
he wouldn't have been able to do that
So-
because he still would have been unconscious for at least 1 hour.
Okay,
at
so
least.
Orvex would have survived, and Cappy would have been forced to make one more death save, and he could
and
have
he
died.
could have
What was,
failed.
So what was he at? 2-2
He had-
or
I think
Yes.
so. One more fail and he would have been done.
he was at 2 fails?
Yeah.
We should make him roll on
this was an idea.
Next
This was an
game.
idea.
Okay, so now moving on to what we can do to sort of.
I guess we touched on this in the show, right? This is what he got pissed about, was he rolled an 11, right? Which is technically by the rules a pass. But we had discussed it previously that Zavril at one time failed
An 11 or
on
a 10?
On 11. He that's what it was, a 10. He rolled a 10 and Zavril failed it right back in the day.
Because we thought it was 50-50.
Right. So then we had looked it up, and I was like, you know what? I like it the way it is. Meat Grinder is 15 plus. Let's fucking do it 11 plus as a succeed.
Yeah,
right?
not meat grinder, but
Right. Pussy Grinder, as Weston called it. So
well, we are making it 50-50. The real rule is 55-45.
right. So we essentially, as a house rule, increased the difficulty by 5%.
right. Okay.
Right. And I thought we all knew about it. It could have been a discussion on a BTS. I don't know when it came up.
I think we all
exactly.
knew about it.
I thought we all did too. I thought
think
it was
we did.
all in agreement that
Let's
5e
be
was
real,
too easy.
Swaney is the king of missing little shit like that.
Fair enough, but that's where I was coming with it, and I was
Swaney,
like, look,
just can't miss shit. Pay attention, brother.
I was like, we held Zavril's feet to the fire before at the refuse pit.
Yep.
He failed on the 10, and we never came in and corrected it. We did talk about it, and we agreed going forward that this is how it was going to be. So there's no way I can go back now. My hands are tied, and then there was the whole coup de grace thing, and but anyway, so moving forward, I had suggested the idea that in order to correct this, course correct, is we're not going to go back. We're not going to retro anything. But maybe as a course correct, we can either roll with it and say, fuck it, let's go forward with the rules in place as they are written, and we'll continue on with using the correct method. Or we can we can force him a roll on the death save, and if he fails it, maybe give Copernicus the effects of the death curse, right? So he's alive, but he's dying. It's as if he's been resurrected prior.
Right. Which means
Which
in game time, we would have a very limited number of days.
That's right, because mechanically speaking, when you have the death curse, you lose 1 max hit point per day.
Oh my god!
Right, so that's pretty. So Sindra Sylvain, Irame's father, anybody who's suffering the effects of the
I like
death
that.
curse.
I actually like that idea.
Right, I like it too, but we'll see.
You're the GM.
Yeah,
You make it happen.
No, I'm not going to do it without Copernicus's blessing, without James's blessing. I mean, I can see just saying we fucked up. Let's keep it the way it is, and then we'll
now
course
that it's
correct.
been brought up and everybody knows, if it doesn't happen, it's Copernicus's fault.
It is a cool way to bring the death curse,
a little
to
bit more to
life.
your doorstep.
yep, to life,
Yeah.
and for the audience to really understand the full importance of it.
Nope, my beer is looking good. Thank you. But yeah, I mean, I could go either way with it. I can. I think it would be cool. It would also give him time to kind of tie up any loose ends. Like you said, also, kind of put the death curse on you guys' doorstep, see it a little bit more firsthand.
Yeah, right now it's so vague and abstract.
Yep.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if we were to stay consistent with our fuck ups, we fuck up and leave it in, and we course correct and do it the right way going forward, I'd be fine with that too, just because that's the way we've been doing it.
Yep.
So it's bound to happen.
Yeah.
We fuck up. Thank you, by the way, for I don't have it in front of me. It was a Twitter.
We should.
Swaney would know. Sway.
Was it Wheel and Woe or somebody like that?
Something like that. Yeah. That was
I've been following the conversations a little. I don't have the.
Right. Swaney's our Twitter guy, and so I'm seeing all these notifications pop up, and I read them as they come in, but I don't know how to work Twitter. I've never done it before. but that's where I saw it. And but thank you for bringing that to our attention.
And I think they have a podcast as well.
Then I feel like we definitely should get this guy's name so we can give him proper credit.
Yep.
We'll get it and get it out there.
So this kind of brings us.
Wheel or woe? Does that sound?
Wheel and woe,
Wheel and
or
woe.
woe. I think it's something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what threw me off a little bit too is because like for Halloween, we don't have to go into this, but for Halloween, like they added like spooky and scary, like to the name.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. But it seemed cool. Like I haven't.
I'm not the only person that takes Halloween very seriously.
I love Halloween.
I used to.
I'm using my
go all
orange puffer on my microphone.
This is actually
Yeah,
this year.
I'm getting the jump on Christmas with this one.
For Halloween and Christmas, I dress up every day for work during the month.
I used to go all out on Halloween. Like I used to restructure my face with friggin', spirit gum and foam and all kinds of shit and
It's fun.
paint it up. But
I love it.
I still have some of
Some of
stuff
the
at
old
house,
tools.
some supplies.
Customers love it too. I have to take pictures like constantly with people. It's fun.
That is fun.
It is.
Yeah.
So this kind of this rolls nicely into the next topic of our audience.
Oh.
So after the battle ends, the dust settles, no one's dead. Maybe they should be. We re-enter the temple or the shrine rather, and
We're fighting the guys
yes.
in the cages.
Yes, we are refighting these clay gladiators, but now they are behind the bars.
Yep.
You have their hit points
Yeah.
behind the bars. Why?
They had like 107. I halved their hit points.
Is that what I
cut
said?
their hit
Cut them
points.
in half.
I cut their hit points in
I
half.
thought you said you have their hit points, but like that,
I did have their hit points.
the L and the D didn't quite come
Right,
through.
right. No, I did that because it was
Yeah, he's the DM. Of course, he has their hit points.
I cut their hit points in half, and I didn't know where to go with it. Honestly, like I wanted to stick with the system because I wanted you guys to drain spells. They were hitting here and there. I wanted you to drain heals, whatever. But at the same time, it was just a boring stabby stab through cage bars, and I didn't think that was going to translate well over a podcast.
And the reason why they were in the cage is because we didn't set off the.
set off the pressure plate, which
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole range. I mean, the details. People who are DMing this right now are probably like, this was, this was altered. There's a lot of altered stuff in this temple. Some of it was on accident, some of it was on purpose to try to rework the encounter to make it fit with what we're doing with the podcast and everything, make it more entertaining.
We have how many more temples to go?
Yeah,
Shrines.
there's 9 shrines total. Like, there's just a lot of work going on. So I did alter a few things. Some of it was on accident because I got caught in the moment. I said something, and then I go back and I read it, and I see that it's something else. For example, the pressure plate was, I think, the first 60 pounds that steps on it. That's like one person, not
right,
three,
right.
The bars, the square, the lattice in the cage, I think each square is like 2 feet, not 7.5 inches, right? So there's a lot of little changes. One of them I retroed right in it, and that's with this, if there was 2 left or 4 left, Initially I said there's just 2 there, but then in the moment I was just trying to recap and squeeze all the details out reading it, and no, all 4 of them respawn in the cages. It's just 2 of them didn't have spears. So we retroed that during the show. But all the other stuff was kind of already done and mentioned in the previous episode, and it's just too far to go back and fix. I just didn't want to deal with it. But yeah, there was a lot of altered content there.
You'll have plenty of opportunities to make
Right.
us meet our demise.
At the same time, it goes into what it means to prep and DM a written adventure. You know,
And for an audience,
and
not
for-
just for your players.
and for an audience, for your players, I think it goes without saying that you read a written adventure and in the prepping, during the prep you tailor it to your table, right? It's all part. You tailor it to your own DM format. I think would be a good term. You put it in your own format that's easy to understand and read as a DM, and then also you tailor it to your players. You know, not everybody's going to have fun doing certain content that's written in there, so you church it up or you shift gears and throw things. But whatever, I could go on forever about this. But yeah, this goes into that. So pretty much I caught myself in the end where you guys are just poking these things. In the knock spell, I know you were going to bring that up, but I'll bring it up here because in this, those cages, I believe, could have been opened with a knock spell,
Interesting.
right? And
Well, the cages could have been, but why would we?
well, because you could probably just take the spear out of their hand. The only reason why they animated is because you attacked them. And the minute you attack them, they become animated.
Really?
Or you can knock it, attack them, let one out, and fight it. I don't know. You know, at this, I don't know. It's
So they
tough
were all
to say.
okay.
It's
okay,
tough to
yeah,
say
I see.
because the pressure
Interesting.
plate would have been triggered by one person. So would all of you even be in there?
Right, unless there was some way.
It
yeah.
makes
Right.
me want to go to
Tensor's floating disc.
every other shrine
Yeah,
and
or
try
flight,
not to
or
fight
flight.
anything. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Makes me want to enter every
Can
next
you
shrine
cast
and not
flight on
fight
other
anything.
people?
I believe so, right?
How many times can you
Yes.
cast?
Oh,
But
yeah.
flight's a third level spell.
It is. Yes.
How many slots do you have for that?
Two, I think.
Two. Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah, maybe.
Yep.
And I
And
mean,
if-
yeah, there's
yeah.
so many different ifs, and you know, it's.
I would only have 3 knock spells anyway. Fully rested, I would have 3 knock spells.
Right. And here's the other thing was the knock spell on the pedestal. It didn't say if a knock spell could be used or not.
Yeah, I was going
like
to
it,
ask.
like it
'cause
did with the gladiator cages, you know. So
It's-
I was like,
I think maybe it's because the gladiator cages are a little less conventional. Where when we read through the description of the knock spell, it explicitly said if there are multiple
right.
mechanisms, that the knock spell disables one
One
mechanism.
mechanism.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's ultimately what I ended up doing is
Yep.
I don't know how that mechanism works. It's not written. It's not written that if you put all 4 spears in, it initiates one locking mechanism. So I just made it so each spear was its own lock.
Nice.
Right.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Yeah.
honestly.
Yep.
So that's how I did that.
I mean,
Hopefully it worked.
that's actually the more challenging way, because the other option would be to have one mechanism triggered by all 4 spears, and then the lock spell would have bypassed that whole thing in that case.
If it would even work. You know.
Why wouldn't it work though?
Well, because it said that a knock spell can be used on these doors in the
But it
gladiator
never said it
cage,
couldn't
but it
be
didn't
used.
say it couldn't be on that. So why
Right.
would they say that it could be used?
I think because the doors locked on the gladiator cage.
I mean, there was no visible lock, right? I mean,
So it's an exception to normal rules, because it wasn't like the knock is being used to bypass a lock. The knock in that case is being used to bypass a trap. Like a cause and effect of opening the door and animating the,
yeah.
maybe. That's just conjecture.
Right,
I didn't
yeah,
read,
it
I
could
didn't
be.
read the source
It
material.
could be,
But
yeah. Yeah, it's just so hard to say. I always get confused when I see that. Like, it's almost if there wasn't any writing about a knock spell that could be used, I'd be better off. If I'd rather him say knock spell can't be used, you
Yeah.
know, than
Well, so knock is one of those spells that, like, I love the idea of the knock spell, but honestly, it doesn't come up nearly as often as I'd
As
like
you'd
it
think
to.
it to.
Yeah,
Yes,
as
yeah.
I'd expect. But
yeah.
It's actually, I think I had knock loaded as a spell for Irame in the beginning, but
Yep.
when I could switch spells out during a level up, I did.
You trashed it.
Yeah, well, yeah, because I hadn't used it yet.
I'm not going to use it out in the jungles.
Yeah, I hadn't used it yet, and I had started to look at Irame a little bit more as a damage dealer at that
Yep.
point. So I was like, I'm gonna get another combat spell in here.
And yeah, and Quincy's all utility. I mean, like his background is in archaeology. So if you're going into these things, you want to be able to do knock, you want to locate objects, like all that kind of stuff. And
Yep.
that's why he has very little combat spells. I think Tasha's Hideous Laughter is his only combat spell.
Which wouldn't have worked on the gladiators.
Nope.
They wouldn't have thought it was funny at all.
No.
They just have no sense of humor.
What else? you
Don't make me laugh. Ha. Ha. Ha.
That's it for the battle and the temple. I wanted to, though, leave some time in case you wanted to say anything about K-Way and his current predicament. I didn't know if there was anything
got?
there.
Well, now you got me trying to think of what I had already mentioned in the last BTS.
Oh, apologies. I just didn't know if there was anything that happened that... We've already spoken on the fact that the Yuan-Ti was going to kidnap one of us, right? And that's all kind of worked in.
Right. Yeah, I think for the most part, Xavril's story is for now anyway. With Xavril's
Yeah, so we
story,
don't even
I'm
need
trying to
any
be
of this.
very.
I just wanted to, just in
No,
case.
I get it. Yeah, I think our listeners are going to see that story unfold here as we continue. I'm trying to think where we left off with Wesson and with Wesson being ill and stuff like that. It's all still going. You know, it's happening. We're caught up now. You know.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
So we are.
Yeah, you know, so it's like I can't, you know, I don't know what's going to happen.
When we play again.
Tomorrow.
We're playing tomorrow night.
Yeah. I love when we play. I'm
Yeah.
so excited.
Yeah.
You know, well, I think that about wraps it up unless anybody else has anything they want to add.
I'm just wondering.
It's gonna be about-
I'm just wondering if I'm going to bring Svitlongi back at some point.
Svitlongi.
Svitlongi.
Svit.
Svitlongi.
Svitlongi.
Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. It's been a real
Our
pleasure.
first video BTS.
Yep. Well, hopefully it works out, and
This would be Patreon only, right?
the video
This first
portion.
one should be, I think.
Video portion is Patreon.
The video portion's going to be Patreon only. Of course, we're going
I would
to
only
release the audio.
let people who pay see me like